between holidays, it's a tough time. We'll make the meeting as efficient as we can. And why don't we first go through, and I just want to take attendance just to record who's here. So Dean is here, Ashley, Carrie, Janet, John is here, Jennifer, Margaret, Glenn, Michael, Donald, and then Katie. I think I have everybody. And again, we want to thank always Judy and Patrick, Judy and her team for joining us, and also for all the things they've been doing in between meetings, particularly around the holiday season too, because they've been doing a lot of things in the background to make all this go forward. So it's a Zoom meeting. When we do votes, we have to do a roll call vote. I believe that's required in a Zoom meeting, open meeting, and people could raise their hand if they want to speak. And if we're not recognizing you, please speak out. And my apologies if I miss someone, or Judy and Patrick, I'm sure will help keep everything, make sure we don't miss anyone. So we want to do some introductions because there are some additional people here from Bartlett. So should we, I don't know, do you want to introduce some of the other people here, Judy, from your team?
From our team, in addition to me, and I know you've all seen Fiona before, Daphne has joined us again this evening. You probably recall hearing from Daphne a couple of months ago when she came to talk about the draft engagement plan. And Martha Lyon, our historic preservation landscape architect expert, wonderful person to work with, is also joining us tonight. I don't think any of you have met her before, but Martha's always a joy to work with and does an absolutely fabulous job laying out an analysis of the historic resources in a community. So I'm always very happy to have Martha on our team. So that people who aren't here tonight are from Beta Group, but you have seen them. Most of you who would have been at the community meeting in November would have seen Jeff Maxudis and Emily Slotnick. They're on the team as well, but not here tonight.
So good to meet Martha, and thank you all for attending and for taking the time to do that. So
it's a pleasure to see all of you as well.
So first on the agenda is the meeting minutes, and I want to thank Patrick and I think Kevin, who wrote one, for doing the minutes. I don't know if people have had a chance to read them, or if people want to take more time before we vote to accept them, or are people good with them as they are? You want to just take a few seconds to let me know. And we can delay voting on them until the next meeting if you want to take more time.
If you wouldn't mind, I would like that. I haven't had a chance to go over them fully.
Yeah, so why don't we do that? We as you might have saw in the emails, we're proposing a meeting on January 4th. So we talked about that later on in the meeting to see whether that's going to work out with people or not. And again, I want to thank Patrick and Kevin for doing the minutes. And Katie, do you want to do a report on the logo now, or?
So this is I'm sort of in a predicament. So I'm going to propose something and see what you all think. The logo we had a definite winner. The problem is it's not being announced to the class until January 4th. So I hesitate to announce it tonight because the student who produced it hasn't been told yet that they won. So if it's okay with you guys, I'll shoot an email out after the meeting and I'll let you know. I hadn't thought about it. I was all ready to announce it tonight. And when I thought about it, it's not fair to the students. So if it's okay, so that you guys all know, I'll send an email out, but please keep it on the down low because the class is not going to hear about it until the 4th. So I'd say we can go public with it on the 5th or at 2 o'clock on the 4th. But until they have announced it in class, I think we should keep it quiet. But I thank everyone for voting. I think that the submissions were fantastic. Really, we had some great choices. And the votes that came in, everyone felt that way. Everyone voiced that opinion. So I really think that the kids deserve a lot of credit because they did, in my eyes, well above high school level quality. I just think they did a great job.
Yeah, I would certainly second that. As you said, all of them really were really fantastic, and all of them could have been used. But it was good to have that choice, and it really worked out well and it was good for the high school students. So it's a win-win, and we can I think that's something we can publicize too. Obviously, where the logo came from. So thank you for your work on that, Katie, and thanks to the school. So if we meet on the 4th, that would work out fine. Ashley?
Oh, I was just gonna say that I think if we have room in the final document, if we could just put them all in the final master plan, and if the student wanted to, because they obviously kind of each told a little bit of a different story about Walpole, and so I think it would be fun if we could put like their write-up to go with the logo somewhere as a thank you to them.
I think that's a great
It's a
idea.
good suggestion to highlight that. And as you said, they all did they all worked really hard on it. And it's good to recognize that. Them.
Bill?
So now I was going to hand the meeting over to Judy to go through the community engagement, unless anybody has another question before we get there. Any other comments? So Judy, do you want to go through on the update on the survey, and then also talking about the kitchen conversation, the meeting in the box packets?
Yes, and I have a question before I launch into that. Katie, if it's public on the 3rd or the 4th, can we start putting the logo in master plan materials on the 5th?
Yes, and she's going to get me a digital, a more usable
Great.
copy. The teacher, Miss Engels, has been fantastic. The art director's been fantastic, and she agreed that it would be nice if it was announced to them. So she was ready to go, but we talked about it and decided it was fair if they hear about it before anyone else. But yes, it will be good to go, and you can run with it as soon as it's announced.
Great.
And I just want to real quickly, I propose that we from the committee write a letter to the class, thanking them and just recognizing that, and highlighting all of the students who participated. So I can do that. I don't think we have to do a formal vote on something like that, but so we will do that as well.
Phil, I also didn't know, I was going to propose this to you on the side, but since we're here, I didn't know if maybe, sometimes they recognize something like this at their meetings, and I didn't know if we invite them to a planning board meeting and thank them too. So just think about that. We can see, but I thought they should all be recognized somehow.
Yeah, no, that's something we can consider too.
And if it doesn't work out to do that at a planning board meeting, the school committee could certainly consider recognizing them at one of our meetings as well.
And I had sent, Carrie, you should know, I sent an email to Mary Mortali and told her this was before the vote, and told her that they had done such a fantastic job, how the staff had gone above and beyond, and asked her to pass that along to Dr. Goff. So just so that, and she said she would take care of it. So I don't know, I'll put that in your hands, but just so you know, they have been made aware of it.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for doing that, and I'll follow up with Dr. Goff's office.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Just one more thing on that. Maybe after the first of the year, when the kids are back, Principal Imbush could put it in his kind of a blurb or a recognition in his e-notes as well.
That's a great idea. I'll follow up on that, Mike.
Yeah, lots of parents read it, so get them interested in the master plan as well.
So very, I think it was very successful, and again, good for us, the town, and good to recognize our high school students and their creative skills. So Judy, do you want to go through the community engagement?
Sure. I'm not going to do this by myself. However, I'm going to be joined by Daphne, who I know will have a lot to say as well. But at least on a summary level, I'll kind of kick this off. I think that we probably shared with you, at least kind of on a broad level, what the participation was in the online survey and the Miro boards And it was pretty impressive. I actually can't think of another master plan I've worked on where we had 740 odd people respond to a survey. So, it was really wonderful. The side was a lot of people participated. The downside was it was all open-ended response questions. Typically what we would do, if we were going to do a survey following up on a meeting like that, we would pull all the notes together and look at perhaps what the highest, the most frequently mentioned ideas were, put those in, ask people to say whether they agreed or disagreed with one of those, and then give them an option to say other. So if they had something to mention that wasn't in the list, they could do that, but it gave us an easier way to tabulate, to do a tabulation. In this case, we had 740 respondents times 6 or 7 questions, all of which were open-ended, and it's been quite an effort. Daphne has put in, I don't even know how to begin to summarize what this has been like. So Daphne's done a lot of work on that. The Miro board was a little bit easier to work with just because there weren't quite as many respondents, but still a lot of comments. And so what we're doing is we're holding off on putting out any sort of summary of all that input until the kitchen conversation meetings are done, because we don't want to put something on the street prematurely and then, perhaps have those meetings really change something or make it look like those meetings really don't matter because the summary's already been done. So what has been sent around is a summary of the meeting, and that is in your Dropbox that you are, welcome to read. I think we had, I don't know, something like 45 or 50 people at that meeting. I'm terrible with remembering head counts, but we had somewhere in the 40s, at that meeting, and they broke into small groups. And so we have a pretty good record now of what was said. We finally did get all the notes finally got all the notes from people who had led the group discussions, and then we got them all. And so that at least we have for you, and you're welcome to review that, and we're eager to answer any questions about it. But the same questions that were asked in the community meeting on the November 17th are essentially the questions that were asked on the survey, asked on the Miro boards, and are in the kitchen conversation packet, so that we get as consistent as possible input for this kind of first big engagement phase, which culminates in a draft vision statement and kind of broad goals for the master plan as a whole. I mean, that's kind of what the product is, if you will, from this effort. So the kitchen conversation packet is in Pat's hands. About an hour ago, a video to provide, sort of a little training on how to use the kitchen conversation packet is also in Pat's hands to share with all of you. We've just put together a little video on how to do this. So you're not just having to read it in a packet, but you also can kind of watch the video and, kind of follow along in the packet. And at the end of that, of course, is our contact information, Pat's and mine. So if anybody is stuck and has a question, you can contact us, we'll help you. But that ability to do the kitchen conversation meetings, we're going to hold that open until the end of January, recognizing that for many people who want to do this, it's kind of hard to get those invitations out over the holidays. But you'll have the month of January to do them. And then we have to kind of stop that phase. We'll be moving on to subsequent phases of community engagement, but the vision and broad goals piece will end, in terms of input received, will end on January 30th. So I would encourage all of you to consider hosting a kitchen conversation meeting. It's not hard to do. You probably need about an hour and a half or so to do it by the time people come to think about getting invitations out, having people over to your home, setting up for the meeting, getting the packet from Pat. The video walks through how to tell Pat what you need, because depending on the number of people participating in your meeting, you may need different quantities of certain handouts in that packet. But so give Pat plenty of notice, because he may have to do some photocopying to have things ready for you. But I would just encourage all of you to think about using this as a way to perhaps get, your hands out more into the community, perhaps reaching people who either have been somewhat underrepresented in the process or simply haven't been part of it at all. And so I think that there probably need to be thinking, Phil, about how to perhaps almost have a sign-up system for committee members who are going to do this. So you guys will have a sense of what's the breadth of the outreach here. kind of who are we hitting in terms of groups that are going to be invited to participate. And that might help some of you figure out perhaps who's missing so that some additional outreach can be done. But this is really an example of a task that a master plan committee would usually do. It's not a consultant-driven one, it's a resident one. And so I would encourage all of you to consider doing that. And there may be other town officials who are willing to do it as well, who are not on the master plan committee, and that would be fine too.
So I know, there's a big concern making sure we get out to some of the communities that aren't necessarily engaged in our groups or town government. So, but before we get to, I want to talk a little more about that. But so first, does anybody have any questions first on the update, the survey? I know we haven't had a chance to read it, and we're going to go over that in more detail than Judy at another meeting.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think everybody should read all the summary you have now is just the meeting. It's the November 17th meeting.
Yeah.
We have not added to that the survey, Miro, because those pieces all are going to be supplemented by the kitchen conversation meetings that you have. So we're holding off on any of that additional reporting to you, Phil, until we have the kitchen conversation meeting results, and then we're going to package the whole thing together into one summary document.
And then people can respond to that.
Yeah, but for now, I mean, you have the meeting summary. You can certainly respond to that. I think especially because a lot of committee members didn't make the meeting, they probably want to read the summary.
Yeah, and we can cover that at the next meeting or whenever that makes sense.
Sure.
If people have questions on that.
Yeah.
So as far as the
Phil, can you hold on one second? I think Daphne has something to add.
I wanted to add two things. One is that it's not really something to respond to, because basically it's a compilation of what we've heard. So other than questions, it's not something, it's really just to digest. What is it that we've heard through all of these different forums? And the second thing I wanted to point out is, especially during this time that health and safety are of utmost concern, if you're not comfortable holding these kitchen conversations in your kitchen, you may just find another location that may be more public, a coffee shop or a public library. So especially if you're inviting people that are strangers to you and you're not necessarily feeling comfortable in your home. So just wanted to add that the kitchen is a symbolic.
Now, is it possible to do it by Zoom? In the email I sent out, I was suggesting that people might want to adapt it for Zoom, but is that something?
Absolutely, it can be done that way. Yeah.
Because particularly right now, I think people are more concerned, and people may not even want to go to a public place even.
The video touches on all this.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay. Yeah. And thank you for doing the video, by the way, making it very easy for people to see how to conduct it. So. No,
I did address sort of the public health situation because I think we all have concerns right now. I mean, just to be clear, we're not even doing in-person meetings right now as a firm. We're just not doing them. So I think one big, task we have as committee members is getting this out to more groups. And since this might be the main vehicle we have at this point in order to reach out to people and get their input, it would be incumbent upon us then to find ways to reach out to different groups and make contact with people who might be able to take it themselves to their community. Because it doesn't have to be us being the ones that do it, or it could be anyone doing it. So one thing in the initial plan that you had come up with, there was Judy, there was a list of some of the organizations that we wanted to be able to contact, whether it be civic organizations, churches, and we had done some brainstorming at that first meeting. So I propose that we actually formalize that more and come up with a list of all the organizations anybody can think of, and then maybe see who on our committee can take responsibility to reach out to somebody there, and really dig deep. What are organizations that maybe we don't often come in contact with, or we don't think people in that organization are that engaged in maybe some of the town activities, but are we do want to get their feedback. So that might be one step to, as I said, to formalize it, come up with a list of who we think we need to contact, and then have somebody from our committee take responsibility to reach out to them and make sure that we do, we arrange for, a kitchen conversation.
Hey,
Does that
Phil,
make
I think.
sense?
Hey, Phil, I think I just had based on our last meeting, I think that we all kind of left, or at least many of us left, understanding that at least more than a few of us are members of town meeting, right? So I think a really good way for us to get out there is to catch up with our other precinct, the rest of our precinct, and kind of push this out to them as well, so that we can bring more people from our individual precincts into these
Yeah.
discussions. So that's another way to do it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good suggestion. So to make this work, if people, we could either do something in Dropbox, or it'd be good to have like a shared document where people could enter the names of the organizations, at least start accumulating them, or we could send them to one person who would put them in a spreadsheet or something. Just trying to think the easiest way to do this. Patrick, did you?
That could be the repository of all that input, right, Pat?
Oh, I don't envy that job. I mean, I'd be happy to do like a shared Google sheet or something. And maybe we can do a little bit. I'm comfortable using Google Sheets. If anybody else is comfortable, I can share that. I don't know in terms of open meeting law how that works, but
It's an issue.
I don't want to put that on Pat if there's an easier way, I guess.
I think it's a good suggestion, Ashley. I don't think there's any problem doing that from open meeting law,
Okay.
right? Unless someone knows otherwise.
We're not deliberating, I guess. We're just
Yeah, that's what it is. If you're just providing information, or you're not having an open discussion on it.
Because that would save a lot of redundancy, rather than 5 people send the same groups to you, Pat. So Ashley, do you mind setting that up?
Sure. I can set up the Google sheet if if there are people not comfortable with it. If you want to just email me, I can enter it in for you.
And I think what we want to do is have the name of the organization, a contact name, and contact information if we know it, and then who on the committee has volunteered to be, the contact, our contact. And I was looking at other, I looked at other master plan committees in other towns just to see what they were doing. And in one town like Westboro, they called them ambassadors, and their whole approach, which I thought was actually valuable, was that person would stick with the contacting that group. So it would not just end when maybe that one, kitchen conversation occurred. That person would keep in touch with them during the process, because we also want people to come out to the other 2 public forums we're going to have. So if people are good with that, I wanted to, see if people would be willing to at least on some of the groups, be willing to be a contact and keep that connection going. Because some groups may not get a lot of participation, even if they do the conversation in a kitchen conversation. Some groups may not respond the first time, but may have interest and may not work out. I think for what that means for us, though, if we're really going to try to reach out to the groups in town that we don't think often get involved in these things, and we need to really dig deep to find those groups. That would be our responsibility to help do that, whatever it takes. Now, there may be other things we can do as well, but I think, that would be, I think, on us to really, think hard about who we know or what groups we maybe know about that we can reach out and maybe, find those contacts.
So Phil, I would say it would be 2-pronged, that would be a definitely very important step, the one you just described. And then the other prong would be to say who, in terms of demographic, is missing. And then from there, determine how to reach them. So on the one hand are these organized groups that you want to comb through and assign people to. And on the other hand is identify who are the people that are missing, that are perhaps more difficult to reach, and may perhaps not necessarily associated with some of these organized groups. And I looked back at the notes from our meeting, the hybrid meeting that I attended with you, and you had identified 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different groups. One was Spanish speaking, Portuguese speaking, renters, people of color, and you said that, when I say you, I mean you hesitate to come to downtown perhaps, and newcomers who perhaps are not necessarily connected to the town just yet. Hopefully the survey reached the latter two. So that leaves the first three, just Spanish speaking, Portuguese speaking, and renters. So in terms of reaching those, for the Spanish speaking, Portuguese speaking, we would need translation and interpretation. And so we need two things from you. One is to see if the town has any additional resources to help us with, either monetary or in kind. So monetary obviously would just be, adding to the budget, or if they could help, they meaning the town, to identify community volunteers that could help with that translation and interpretation. And it wouldn't just be now, right? Because now we could hold a focus group until January 30th, as Judy said, but it would also be for later, because if, just like Phil just said, once we identify these people and get them engaged, we want to keep them engaged throughout the process.
So Judy and I talked about this, and what I was going to try to do, I have a call into Jim Johnson to see if there's additional funding we can get to pay for translation. There's two parts to the translation. One is translating the actual survey questions. The other one is translating the answers. And I know we've gotten.
So there's a third option. And the third option would be to hold a focus group with the same questions.
Right.
And so then that would be interpretation. Interpreting, not doing the verbal interpretation, and then we would document it. So that would be kind of quota sampling, and we would need your help to do that quota sampling. We would need you to help us to identify the participants of that focus group.
So that way we would interpret it in real time rather than translating it after the fact.
Exactly. And when you do that, you can also ask for clarification.
Yeah.
Discussion.
Could I ask for clarification on just to go back a little ways back to Judy's Judy had given the update in the beginning, and thank you for that. But I think that what I heard, and I just want to make sure, is that in pulling together all of this information, it was difficult to do that because of the open-ended questions. And I guess my first question for the group is, that was expected, correct? I mean, that's the way it was built, and you anticipate, because these kitchen conversations are all the same open-ended questions. So we anticipate putting this out. There was no real, it wasn't an issue that we didn't have more targeted questions in this part of the process, right? So that we're right on track. There's no issue with that,
Yes,
right? It just kind of
correct.
sounded like it was a challenge, and I don't.
Well, it was a challenge because typically, if we were then following up with a survey, Mike, we would have picked from the responses at the community meeting, the
Sure.
things that were most frequently said. So people could do a multiple choice, pick one of these that they agree with, or they could add something. What it does is it cuts down the volume of open-ended responses that have to be considered. But we didn't have the time to do that because the meeting notes weren't even all in yet.
But Mike, you're saying that
I guess, but you're not surprised by that. That's what you were expecting this, right? So it's
We're all right with it. I'll leave it at that. We're okay.
I mean, it was your plan, right? So I just wanted to make sure that we're on track.
No, you're right.
We had not originally intended to do a survey that soon.
John, I think you had your
Mike,
hand
you
up.
are correct.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. But John, you're on twice. Do you know?
I only have one camera. I have one for listening and one for viewing.
Oh, that's okay. I just want to make sure you knew. But go ahead.
I don't know where this Hispanic Portuguese thing came from. It certainly didn't come from the census data. Maybe that applies to some other town. I don't think it's sort of tokenistic. I don't think it really applies to Walpole. It's kind of a waste of resources. We have more. If you want to get into ethnicities, I mean, I could do the Italian American Club or something, but I don't think that is represented in Walpole. Quite frankly, I don't think we should spend a lot of money trying to create a Hispanic, focus group.
Well, I think what we could do is reach out and see if there is a need out there and see if there's a Spanish-speaking community group that would be interested in that. I don't think the census is the best source to know whether or not folks are being accurately counted, especially in those categories, right?
Yeah,
Historically,
I would say
undercounted.
that the renter component, I agree with that. Patrick has a very detailed inventory of all the renters in Walpole. That'd be easy to get, design some sort of a sampling of that, which would be more representative and actually common sense or practical, as far as I'd be concerned. Knowing Walpole for 60 years, I can tell you, I don't think there's any non-English speaking Spanish, Portuguese segment out there that needs to be covered. I mean,
I think if we
It's
go to the school
very
department, we will,
politically correct to do it, but I think it's, if we got limited funds, I think they could be used more productively than that.
I think the school department, we know there's a lot of students who speak other languages, and it isn't just Spanish. I believe somebody said Portuguese may be the #1 language in Walpole. So there is that. There is a fair amount of people, and we do. Let's take a look and see, because we don't want to miss any population or any sizable population. And we could all argue what sizable is, but everyone should be represented. So maybe something that we can take as an action item to a couple of things. So one is we should see what that population is, and then also we should see how we can address it, how we contact them, reach out to it, what you were just talking about. Carrie, did you want to say something?
Yeah, a couple of things. So the point about non-native English speakers was something we discussed in our meeting in October. It's in the minutes. I apologize for the background noise on my computer. I don't know how to get rid of that. We have over 50 languages spoken in the homes of Walpole Public School students. And I am trying to find the exact percentage of students who are considered English learners, and I don't have it at my fingertips. I'm trying to look it up right now. But I think that it's problematic to say that any portion of our population is not worth spending time and resources. I do take your point, John, that we're trying to reach out to everybody, and we want to make sure that we are, paying equal attention to everybody. But to pay equal attention to everybody means putting a little more time and effort into reaching certain populations, I think, in this process. But the second thing that I think is it's a little problematic, and not necessarily the purview of this committee, that the town of Walpole doesn't already have some infrastructure for translation and interpretation services. So maybe there are steps we can take in our work that might spur the town on to incorporate these services at a broader level. One thing I can ask about is, I know that we have an English learner pack within the Walpole Public Schools, and so we have parents that are involved who speak languages other than English, and I'm happy to reach out to people involved with that pack to see if perhaps there are some parents who might be willing to serve as translators or interpreters as part of it.
Awesome.
Yeah, and Carrie, maybe they'd be willing to do the conversation, the kitchen conversation too.
Yeah.
But that, so if you,
maybe we could attach it to one of their meetings, perhaps, or find another time. I can look into that.
Yeah, no, that would be fantastic. So again, this would be good for people. When Ashley creates that spreadsheet, the Google Doc, getting all of this information in that. So we, going back to Delphine's point that we need to identify what other groups were missing based on that survey. We can get a better sense of that. So I would ask that we try to update that document within the next week, so that we have time to go from there and actually make sure we're reaching out to people, because we only have the month of January, so it's not that much time to really arrange for the actual sessions. And then and Carrie, if you go out into the pack, and that sounds like that would be a big jump for us, a big head start. So
and a couple of other areas that were identified in our meeting together was the food pantry, tenants associations, and something that we didn't talk about, but are there any businesses that cater to specific groups? Usually they would be a restaurant or a grocer, a specialty grocery store. I don't know if you have any that are, of a certain ethnicity. And that's another way of reaching out.
So I think we can all take a look at those things and make sure that we're, we're actually identifying any prospective, either groups, companies, or businesses, or organizations, or so I think those are all really good suggestions.
So Phil, if I could I just round back to my initial, I was getting to my question. So with that update, are there any questions, or are we asking all the right questions between now and January 30th to give you the information that you need in this first phase? That's kind of where I was going with my last.
We're staying with the questions that we asked at the November meeting, and those really are the ones we want to ask.
Good.
Thank you.
So those are all good suggestions. So I think seeing this list would be a good start. So please, again, once it actually gets done, if people could start entering things, and then we can take a look at it, and all of the other things that Daphne mentioned, and looking back at the initial plan from the that you wrote, from the very first meeting, we can go back to that as well. Do people? So we know that this is a challenge to kind of get that input. Do people have other suggestions of things we can do as well?
In particular, any thoughts about reaching renters?
Reaching renters.
They're not a homogeneous group by any stretch of the imagination. There's renters of different types of housing in different parts of town, but they're one of the most left out groups in this process everywhere. And people sometimes say, well, renters really don't care because they're transient or they're not connected to the community. And yet we sort of end up designing processes in a way that they never really get engaged in the first place. So
Right.
I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on how we might be able to reach some. Pat, did you have something to suggest?
I was going to say all the larger complexes in town, I can get contact information for, and usually they'll have like a renter list, and so
Yes.
they'll be able to spread news and information out that way to their tenants.
That would be great.
And Ashley?
Yeah, so there was a woman that I got to know through some of the other housing development projects who's a renter in Walpole who really wants to be able to buy a house in Walpole, and she's got kids in the school system, and we used to chat a lot. So I have her contact, so I was going to reach out to her because I know that she's also friends with a lot of like renter moms. So that's something I can take on.
That is exactly how we ended up finding people on a project we're working on in another town. Was the who's connected to whom connected to whom. It was like peeling back layers of an onion, and eventually you get to the people you're trying to reach. It takes a lot of work. It really does. There's no magic pill to this.
And I know one person, and others may know people as well. So that would be, again, for all of us to maybe do some brainstorming and see, who we might know or how we might contact people.
So Ashley, if you're going to create that Google Docs sheet, you're going to share that with Pat, and then it gets fanned out to the whole committee? How are we going to do this? Just logistically.
I already sent it to Pat, so.
All right. Well,
It's the
All right.
millennial in me, right?
Yes, right.
And Ashley, is it in our Dropbox, or is it, it's in a Google? It's got to be a Google Drive.
It's a Google Drive. Yeah. So Pat, you're going to share. Can you make sure we get a copy of it? Because then we can kind of monitor what's being added to it too.
I'll send it out right now.
Is it your Google Drive, Ashley?
Yes, and I'll probably tweak it a little bit. I was trying to think of the best way to organize it because there's like two things going on. There's like the brainstorm of like big umbrella stuff, and then there's the, like, we're not going to say, oh, I reached out to renters, right? We're going to say I reached out to so and so, and then they're a renter, and so I'll tweak it a little bit. But I did try and capture the groups that did come up just in one kind of space.
And we might want to put type of group maybe too. That might be something.
That's what I was trying to say. Yeah. So
Okay,
type of group. So there's the big umbrella of type of group, but when we're actually entering who we're reaching out to, it's not very helpful to just name the type of group, right? We're going to want that contact. And I also included method of contact and the date reached out to, so we can kind of track that as well.
Good. And Martha?
Just another thought about reaching audiences. You may want to check in with the Cultural Council, Walpole Cultural Council, because they, fund a lot of arts and arts organizations, and oftentimes that draws a diverse group of arts organizations, draw a diverse group of people. And I also just noticed on their this town website under the Cultural Council, it does show that one of their goals for the next round of funding is to increase diversity in their funding. So they may have done some investigation of, what's out there, who's out there that maybe represent a different slice of the community.
Anyone else? Jen?
Yeah, can we maybe use Hometown Weekly and some other thing that goes to most, again, I worry about even what further in my email I sent earlier in the week, all these things they're tethered to us in our network. So we're reaching the far corners of our networks, but it's still, I would hope if we had some way to contact people that are underrepresented and not necessarily engaged, we would be doing it in all aspects of town events. So I just think if there's something that, maybe we do a Zoom meeting that is, we advertise it in Hometown Weekly, and we try to get, maybe we can have a specific one for if you're a renter in Walpole, we're doing it on X date, and we can think of something else. I still have that concern that we're doing a great job of thinking about our spheres and our networks, but it's not all of Walpole.
And we could put an article in the Hometown Weekly to, I'm not sure. So doing a Zoom meeting, we could do that, but we might not be doing the kitchen conversation if it's a large group. I mean, that would be the challenge. Now, we also could go out as representatives ourselves to speak at groups. So Pat and I are going to the senior center next week to speak, but that's also another option. I don't mind going anywhere and speaking, by the way, but that's another way to do that, maybe. But Jen, so if you want to just elaborate more on your suggestion, just having a Zoom meeting to maybe explain what the master plan is, and
yeah, I mean, we could use breakout rooms. So you could have, if we had, I have a licensed Zoom account, right? So I can have, I think, up to 100 people. If we got 100 people, fantastic. And then you can sort of randomly break people into breakout rooms so they could have that smaller conversation. So again, we would maybe just ask one person to be a scribe and to come back to the main group and to send, we could put an email or just, I don't know how we would collect the information, but.
Okay. We could see if we can make that work.
But
I also have a Zoom license myself, so. But
I also heard Jen say, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you would also offer maybe a focus group by affinity group. So that if you, on this date at this time, if you're a renter, come to this focus group. Did you mean that as well?
If we can, that would be great. But I also think, I don't know how I want to be mindful of how we put these things in the paper and how we solicit particular groups and things like that. But I was, so I was thinking, because renters are more than just the large complexes that we know. There are lots of renters in Walpole that don't live in large complexes. So that's why I just want to make, that's when we talk about renters, it's not a monolith. When we talk about, non-English speakers, it's not a monolith. It's so I don't know, like I would say, like I've been saying, like if I had these answers, I'd be trying to put them into effect in everything I do in Walpole, but yeah.
So Jen,
we could put together a straw, kind of do one and maybe do, whether we do a focus group or just to open it to the community. We probably won't get thousands, hundreds of people,
No, you won't. Jen, we've
Time
gone through a process of trying to identify people in another community, a much more difficult and controversial project than even this one. And it was like pulling back layers of an onion. Every time we interviewed a group that was referred to us by somebody who was connected, we always asked, who else should we be speaking to? And Daphne, I don't want to overestimate this, but I think it took a good 6 weeks. of going through that process before we finally got to the real stakeholders, the people who, but it was like wading through all these lists. And that's why I said there's no magic bullet to this. It's just that much labor of, you're right, you probably don't have the connections that you need, but you just keep asking people, who else should we be talking to? And eventually someone's got a name that you have never heard in some group that you are not connected to, and they open up doors.
But also there are some threads that are hanging already just here tonight, right? Ashley and Phil both know renters who all know other renters, and you could put together that group. It won't be a random sample by any chance, or by any measure, but it will be a quota sample, right? That you've brought together some people that they happen to know each other, so they probably have other things in common as well. But that's okay. At least we're getting that portion of input.
So Judy, I think you just said it yourself. That took like 6 weeks. We don't have 6 weeks unless we're pushing the time frame out. And I think it's more important we hit the people than hit the time frame. I think, what Jen said, there's a lot of weight in that. And I think that, we're already, this is a holiday week. I think we're the only group in town meeting this week because it's the holidays. So when you look at that and you look at the calendar, by the time you advertise or schedule, there's not much time.
So I understand. I'm sorry.
No, that just concerns me. That's all.
Well, it concerns us too. The problem is that we have to sort of end this phase at some point, and we're already stretching it going to January 30th. I think people need to bear in mind that there's more to this process. If I put up the schedule right now, when you saw where we are, we're really still very much in the beginning of this process. So we're going to hit the point in late February, early March, where another engagement effort opens up again. And that focuses really more on the individual elements of the plan and kind of what the goals should be for those, and information that people want to bring to the table for those elements. Anything you do now to try to increase and improve outreach into the community will benefit those later phases. But the vision and goals, we have to end this by the end of January. We were delayed, and now there's a budget issue with this. So we have to stop on January 30th with this phase. Doesn't mean that there won't be more outreach opportunities down the road.
Ashley, were you going to say something before?
Oh, I was just thinking about, because somebody else, I forget who now, mentioned that this is kind of an ongoing ambassador. So this is like the start of a conversation. Do we wish we started it a month ago? I mean, we tried to, right? And we had that community meeting, and we kind of saw, I think, visually who might have been missing from that meeting. So I think we just have to do the best that we can with where we're at.
And I think it would be important to reach out to these missing demographics and start that engagement now as much as you can during January, and letting them know that you will be their ambassador, as Phil pointed out, and you will be reaching out to them again and yet again throughout this process. But to make that initial contact now, I think would be important, so they don't feel that they've been contacted halfway through the process.
So why don't we, again, go back to the, the spreadsheet, all of us do our work to identify those groups, maybe reach out even beyond that and talk to people. And then, maybe Jen, we could do something what your suggestion and try it out and see, the best way to do that. So if you're interested, I don't mind working with you on that and maybe see what that might look like. And we can consult back to, to Judy and her team and see what makes sense from your perspective.
Yep, I'm on board with you, Phil.
John, did you want to say something?
Yeah, well, just a question. You mentioned that you and Patrick are going to the senior center. I guess Janet isn't here tonight. I don't know, but are you going? You said you're going to give a speech. Are we like freelancing to? You're not going to do a.
I think you just went away, but
Rose, oh my goodness.
they've lost your audio too.
I'm here, Joan.
Yeah, Janet, they reached out to Patrick.
Women's Club is, I'm doing kitchen cabinets with those 3 people. Is that the way that works, or I'm trying to understand how you're, bundling these activities.
Yeah, so Patrick, they reached out to you. Do you want to just?
Important issue. I think that, I think maybe, I don't know if you're a senior, Phil, but I am. And I think that it's important we tap them in the appropriate ways to get the inputs, because they're 35-40% of the population of the town.
Yeah, so Carrie has the Thursday coffee
Conversation.
Patrick, they reached out to Patrick first, so.
Can I speak on that?
Is this through? I'm sorry, Pat. Is this through Carrie for the kitchen conversations at the senior center?
Yeah, so I had reached out to Kerry because we still have the ongoing those poster boards from the initial public forum, moving around from building to building. And so I dropped them off at Senior Center a couple weeks ago. Talked to Kerry about trying to maybe do either a kitchen conversation or some kind of just discussion about the master plan, the importance of the master plan, and then maybe setting up maybe a couple of different meetings throughout January to run the kitchen conversation activity. So our discussion on the January 6th, and then Phil, I didn't see a comment or I didn't see an email back from Debbie over at the senior center, but on the 6th, depending on the time we have, I mean, we're at least going to go in and kind of, introduce ourselves, talk about the process. If the time allows for it, if we can try to do breakout groups for the kitchen conversation, great. If not, try to set up time throughout January to go back and do that process with the seniors.
And Janet, please join us for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because we would need, if we did these breakout sessions, we'd actually want to have maybe a couple more people too. So we'll let you know about it. But that was something that again, just an example of, that we can reach out and offer to groups to actually go and speak to them or even do the kitchen conversation.
What time is it? No.
It's 1 o'clock on January 6th.
Yeah.
And we haven't had a confirmation on everything yet, I think.
Yeah.
So the other thing, long as we're talking here, you set out 10 elements of the master plan in your email, Phil.
Yes.
And I noticed that two key things are not on here, and I would challenge you from past plans anyway. You have 7 or 8 of the points covered, but you added 2 that have not been covered previously: climate change, resiliency, and community health. I assume that's pandemic related or something. But the ones you left off was a very predominant one at the high school, which was education. You totally left education off in the schools. And you also left off tax relief and spending concerns particularly by the seniors, which that was probably one of their number 1 themes.
So John, let me just, before we go there, just want to make sure, we just want to bring a close first the whole engagement, public engagement. Does anybody have any other comments or questions about that before we go on to the next subject then? My question previously you didn't answer. So we are freelancing. In other words, I'm going to send Ashley kitchen programs that I'm going to do, what organizations I'm doing it with, and when I'm doing them. That's basically it. Right? Yeah, I think there's 2 steps. One is people should put in that spreadsheet all the organizations that we should be contacting, ones that they can think of, and obviously make sure it's not already in the spreadsheet. And then at the same time, you should then volunteer to be the ambassador, the contact from our committee to that group. You may put down suggestions, and you may not want to be, or you may not know anybody.
Right. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, but we all, and you may want to be an ambassador to some, a group that somebody else put in the list. So that would be, to answer your question, yeah, we are freelancing it that way, I think. John?
I just thought of one more community engagement piece. Can we take those, assuming it's nice weather, those large poster boards and put them at the start point of every hike location for the New Year's Day hike?
I don't have enough, so.
Or somewhere, I don't know it yet. Oh, okay. Do we have
No.
some? We could put it somewhere?
I mean, Judy, if you have the PDF, I mean, I could try to print out a few, get them to Glenn.
I
Yeah.
do.
I could put them up at the Aggie. That's going to be a pretty popular site.
Sure.
That's a
Well,
great
that's a
idea.
good suggestion,
Yeah.
Jen.
So I just want to address something here. I think that it is pretty common for master plan committees to kind of get out into the community and promote the plan and encourage people to participate. I think that if folks are going to go out and give presentations, to groups that you want to invite into the process or make sure they feel included, we probably should have a standard master plan presentation that you're using. So I will volunteer to put that together for you so that you have it for that meeting. And then if anybody else is going to do, to reach out to some other group to do a presentation, you'll all have the same slide deck. And I think that way you'll reduce the possibility that people may be getting different messages, because that would be a real problem.
Yeah, no, that would be much appreciated. And by the way, I did send out a link to another presentation, and Judy, her company's been very involved in putting together, working with the same organization, putting together that presentation. So we're certainly thankful for you putting something together for us, Judy, on that.
Yeah.
Judy,
Yeah.
I was also thinking that maybe it would be interesting and important to put together a script for when people are reaching out to organizations and to individuals, so that that script is consistent as well. Why are we doing this? Why is it important? What is the purpose? What will
The
we
elevator
do with the
speech.
information? Yeah.
Yeah, the elevator speech. Yeah,
So
we
you
can
do that,
we can
Judy.
do that. We will do that. We'll
Okay.
get that. So are you done with this phase or do you?
Oh, no, I just want to see, Ashley, do you have something?
Yeah, just two things really quick and then I'll be quiet. So the Google Sheet has two tabs. On one tab is called Brainstorm, and it's the big picture groups that we talked about. And then the other tab is like Contact, Reach Out. And then just for context, because a lot of numbers have kind of been thrown around, and I think this is important, I just pulled up the census data, and 10.4% of the population in Walpole are Hispanic. And I thought this was interesting. 18.1% speak language other than English at home, and 18.4% of the population are 65 years and older. So I just thought that was kind of interesting that we landed at 18% in two of those categories.
So very significant.
So if I just
Yeah, what's the
close-
source on that?
The census data.
Which year?
I can send it out to everybody.
And the school said 10% as well, so that sounds
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah. consistent.
However, it doesn't necessarily say that they don't also speak English, the 10%, which would be great for us if we're going to present to that group. But I guess the point is, you probably don't want to spend a lot of money getting translation services engaged in that kind of stuff. But we
Exactly.
certainly don't want to leave them out, and we have to get out in front of them as quickly as possible to make sure that they're heard in this first part of the process. So I would say two things that I just heard. We're going out to the seniors. I think we have an opportunity to get in front of that pack in January, because they generally meet monthly, and I'd be happy to help with that or wherever I can. So that's one way to do it. And if we do have to advertise something, we should advertise maybe some kind of a meeting for renters, and just kind of give them a shot to come to some kind of public place, whether it's the senior center on an empty evening or something, just to come. And if we get 20, that's more than we probably had, and we can at least get some of those people heard before the end of the month.
Yeah, that's good. So I'm going to move on to the next agenda item, and that'll also come back to your questions, John, on the committee organization. And first, let me just say I didn't do a good job in explaining where the list of the elements that make up the master plan came from. So as we're going to see if you look through the presentation, but as we talked about in other meetings, the master plan elements are defined by Massachusetts law, chapter 41, section 81D. And it specifies 9 different elements that need to be in the plan. 7 of them are actual action items or actual concrete things. And those have to be in every plan. And those are land use, housing element, economic development, natural and cultural resources, open space and recreation, services and facilities, and circulation, which is really transportation. So when I talked to Judy, I said, we talked about one way of structuring the committees to have different members specialize or sign up to be on a subcommittee to look at 1 or 2 of those areas. And we're talking about in a minute what the rationale for that is. So I asked her what were going to be the elements in the plan that they're actually working on. So Judy can speak where the list came from, but she has worked with the town on that. So that I was just putting through the list of the elements that will be in our master plan as of now. And Judy has worked with town officials. They've gone through a whole process to come up with that list. I would turn over to Judy to talk more about that. But we want to align with what as we organize ourselves, if we're going to do these small subcommittees, we want to align with the areas, the subjects that are going to be in the master plan itself. So Judy, do you want to just explain about where those items?
I do. And to support that, I'm going to screen share something. Can you all see this? Can you all see it?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
So the town's request for proposals, which we responded to, that led to our being selected for this project, listed what the plan should address. And those items are what you see in this Venn diagram, which we have organized into the 3 key components of sustainability. Because the town's request for proposals stress the importance of addressing sustainability in this plan. So rather than cut sustainability, into a separate chapter, we decided we're going to use that as the umbrella for the plan. And then it became important for us to make sure that what the town had asked us to do, we had addressed in the organization of the plan. So on the environmental component of sustainability, that covers the natural resources, open space and recreation, and climate change and resiliency components of the plan, which again, we were asked to address. And of those, I will point out that climate change and resiliency is not mentioned in the state law because no one was talking in those terms when the master plan statute was adopted some 30 odd years ago. But it touches on content that would be in any master plan. It's just that it's going to be organized in this particular way. The economic components of sustainability include land use and zoning, how you regulate development in your community, what the land use pattern looks like. Economic development, obviously, what does your employment base look like? What is it comprised of? How strong is it? Where is it strong? Where does economic development activity happen in the community and of what types? Public facilities, services, and energy, of course, will include the schools. It's not just about municipal facilities. And so when we look today at any public facilities element of a master plan, we're looking at things like, energy conservation. What is the community's energy program? What is the community doing about green energy and so forth? So that is all part of that element. We're simply calling it out, but it would be part of it anyway. And then transportation. And then finally, on the social component of sustainability falls housing and cultural and historic resource areas and community health. And again, all of those were asked for by the town. So that's why you see the list that you have. And this is how we opted to organize the content so that we made sure we covered everything and at the same time had a logical approach to sustainability. And so my comment to Phil was, if you're going to ask your committee to organize into subgroups where every one of the topics in the master plan will have some focused attention, if you will, from particular people on the committee, it makes sense to kind of organize around these, think of these as chapters of the master plan. if you organize around these chapters, then when we're starting to give you written deliverables to review, you'll know that you've got 2 committee members who are focusing on the natural resources element and 2 committee members who are focusing on cultural and historic resources. Of course, everybody's going to read the whole plan, but the advantage to having perhaps some subgroups that are focusing on specific topic areas is that we'll know every one of the topics in the plan has gotten kind of a deeper level of review, which will help to make it a better document. So that's kind of where that list came from that Phil circulated to you. And I guess I just wanted to make sure that everybody had that information because you were not all involved in the procurement process that led to our hiring.
Judy, if I may add to that, the only 2 elements that aren't in the state statute are, as Judy said, climate change and resiliency and community health. However, in the last few years, almost every master plan has added those 2 elements.
Oh, yeah. It's out there now everywhere. I agree with you, Daphne, and I didn't say
I looked through several, and this list is very similar to many plans like that.
Yeah, and we were talking about community health before the pandemic. I mean, I
Oh,
worked on a couple of healthy community plans for different Massachusetts towns when the Department of Public Health had a healthy communities program. So, you know, that conversation is not just COVID. It's just that COVID has probably sparked a different type of conversation about the role and responsibility of local government in our time. But it's not just because of the pandemic.
Way before the pandemic, it was being treated in a master plan. But like we said, it's now just being lifted up higher.
Right, right.
When I think of this community health thing, I think also looking at an aging population and saying, what does that mean for benches in public parks? Do we need to make sure that we have a place for folks to sit down every X number of feet? So that I think is also part of community health.
Absolutely. And providing opportunities for social gathering as well as for fitness, all kinds of things like that.
And John, to your question about including other things, so other things can be included. They're going to fit in these 9 areas, and some will be span many of them. But for example, we mentioned taxes. So in the state law, the 9th element that they require is the implementation program element, which defines and schedules the specific municipal actions necessary to achieve the objectives of each element of the master plan or study plan, scheduled expansion or replacement of public facilities or circulation system components, and the anticipated costs and revenues associated with the accomplishment of such activities shall be detailed in this element. So certainly, and Judy can speak at length about that. So certainly, all those other issues are going to be included, and many of them will span multiple areas. So and again, that's something input we can make sure that we voice or that we discuss. But Judy, do you want to speak?
I just pointed that out because those 2 items were not in the previous plans and in the state program. So I thought I'd address it. Essentially, I personally philosophically disagree that we do what Big Brother tells us to do. Government dictates everything, and they're telling us what we have to have and what we can't have in our master plan. And that's really not why I'm sitting here. So when I tell you with great insight.
Oh, I think we lost you again.
I think we lost him too.
Maybe wait a minute, but Judy,
Put it in here. Don't put it in here. That's up to you. And I know it's very woke to be climate resilient and climate change and all this stuff, but I just wouldn't want the emphasis to be balanced equally to something like that that's somewhat esoteric in my mind, as opposed to the meat and potatoes of education and taxes and the real world of the cost of living in Walpole now and in the future.
Mm-hmm. Well, those items are not off the table. They're just included.
Obviously, I'm not going to let them be off the table.
Well, that's good.
So I'm not asking a question. I'm making statements.
That's
yeah,
fine.
I understand that the state law specifies the minimum of what needs to be in the plan.
Right.
Well, that's my point.
The
Exactly.
flexibility to add anything at once.
Well, we added 2 things that it was somewhat esoteric in my mind, so I just thought I'd define that for you.
I mean, I think it's hard to ignore the fact that climate change and sustainability are are right in front of us, and we would be delinquent if we did not address that in a major way.
Well, those are due to other levels of government are really handling that, and that's really beyond the scope and scale of the resources of the town of Walpole to be addressing these, compared to other things that are more pressing and more realistic in our environment that we can influence and affect, such as the schools.
John, I think this is our opportunity to lead this and to participate and make sure that everybody understands. We shouldn't be leaving it up to other people. Everybody's responsible for this.
And there are three main reasons
an economic issue
to do a master plan. One of the reasons to follow the government's recommendations is that it makes you much more eligible for funding. So including those will help you to increase your capacity to address them. Another reason is to be proactive about addressing issues of concern. And there are a lot of people in Walpole who I must say, John, would disagree with you based on the public input, and that they are concerned. And they're equally concerned about the taxes, but they're also concerned about climate change. And then the third reason is to bring everyone together and bring everybody up to speed as to what the specific issues are that the town needs to come around, to prioritize and come around to address.
Yeah, I didn't hear it at the high school myself, any discussions of climate change or community health, but that's fine. I understand.
Yeah, and again,
it's all over the survey. It's all over the survey.
You're going to be reporting on it.
78 respondents.
We may not always agree on everything, but
no, we won't.
but these are very, many of us feel these are very important issues that I think, we'll see what the feedback has been. So the suggestion as far as on the organization is to form subcommittees based on these 9 areas. And as Judy said, it doesn't mean that you won't be working and reading all of the sections. But what we want to do is take advantage of people's expertise, or their interest, or their experience, or their contacts to make sure that we're giving a lot of diligence and review to each area so that we're not missing anything. So the suggestion is that if each of you would send to Pat and myself 2 or 3 areas, and maybe you might want to rank them, that you'd be most interested in being the reviewer, working in this subcommittee. Then what we would do is put together 9 subcommittees covering the 9 areas. And those subcommittees could be independent, and would, the first part is reviewing what we're getting from Judy's team. And that would be an ongoing work. And again, everyone can read everything. So this is not intended that you won't be involved in other sections. It's just to make sure that we're a little more focused so that everybody isn't spread out everywhere. And then we make sure that we really do have some people looking at each area. So does that make sense? Do people have any thoughts about that? Or
yeah, I object to that. I mean, basically, yes, we should have people designate a priority of 1 or 2 subgroups that they want to be on. But anyone who wants to be in any of these subgroups should be included as part of the committee. There's no reason for you to delimit only 4 people or only 3 people be on a particular topic if there are 6 people that are interested in participating in that committee. In fact, the size of committee is actually more desirable if you get 6 or 7 people as opposed to 3.
Well, the only reason for limiting, John, is just the practicality of having 9.
Get the expertise documented so you know where the priorities are for as people getting or heading up these subgroups. But certainly, if another person wants to sit on that committee because of their particular background or profession or what have you, I can't see any reason why to deny them.
Meg.
I think the point of that organization is so that there are topics that don't have anybody looking after.
Right.
We're trying to make sure that everything is covered.
That's right.
Otherwise, everybody might do, facilities or, and not give a lot of attention to the other areas. So, and the practicality of limiting it to just 2 or 3 people is because if there's 9 subgroups, not thinking everybody wants to go to a lot of extra meetings. So but what do other people think?
I guess I don't understand how doing that would work logistically. So are those, I'm like, okay, does that mean you're like the copy editor for that section to make sure that, or how, like, so how does, I guess I don't understand how it works logistically. Would people kind of send you what they want included and you would, I guess I don't understand.
Let me address this. So around the 2nd or 3rd week in February, you're going to get a batch of documents from us. They are going to be the existing conditions, inventory and assessments for each element of the plan. Those need to be read for accuracy. They need to be, read for what did these crazy consultants miss? We need help from the committee, from all of you who obviously are on this committee because you care about the town. We need to have kind of close reading of those documents, not copy editing. I just won't even entertain that. But factual stuff, additional information, we will give you what's called a comments resolution matrix. And you will kind of go through the documents and you'll identify things that you think either are missing or need to be further explained. You'll enter that information in the CRM, which is, we're finding just the most efficient way to do this process. We're not going to take email comments back. We're not going to take marked up PDFs. It's too messy. We use a CRM. We've used it successfully on many projects. You guys give us that feedback back. We then do a revision addressing any errors that were omitted, and we'll turn around a revised and final version. So those documents will benefit from having a couple of people focusing on a section or two. And of course, everybody should read the whole thing if they want. We're not saying you shouldn't do that. But we're talking about organizing a review process for a document that's complicated. And it generally would be advisable if you had a couple of people collaborating on each element. And then there's an efficient way to do it. Like Ashley, you might, I'll just pick one out of the air. We're going to read climate change and resiliency. And so you and John will read it. John loves that topic. So you and John will be the readers for climate change and resiliency. You're going to go through it. You can talk, you can compare notes, you fill out your CRM, you give them back to us. Actually, you give them back, we will then give them to us.
If I'm right, I think collaboration is an important word there, because I think it's very valuable to have more than one person who then could work together and work off each other as you discuss things and see things.
Absolutely. Yeah, we don't want to have one person be the reader for an element because we don't know that we're really getting the breadth. But if a couple of you are reading, take 2 documents each or something and collaborating with somebody else on the committee, then it increases the probability that what we're getting back from you guys is quality, that it's been checked, and that you kind of agree on what's missing or what's good about it or whatever. So we get clear direction.
Okay. So like in theory, if Mike wanted to do a CRM for 8 of the topics, I'm just picking on you, Mike. Could he just go ahead and do that? Or
we're not going to read a zillion of these. No, I'm telling you, I think what you need to do is what Phil had said, have a small subgroup of like 2 people per element. So we get sort of two sources of feedback, you and John. And those will be the kind of primary comments that we're going to take. Because what we cannot do is have 5 or 6 people reading a section and then everybody giving us different input. We just can't process all that.
If I wanted to read 20 of them and then funnel my comments through John, and he takes note of those, and that's
absolutely, Mike. Absolutely. That is fine. As long as we're getting, 2 comments matrices per element, that's manageable for us. Again, harkening back to the survey, it's like
I think that settled. I mean, that answers John's concerns.
No, it doesn't answer mine, because it allows 1 or 2 people to totally structure a whole area with their own particular biases and perceptions and their view of the world.
John, the thing that's important for you to understand is what you're going to be getting in February.
Very diverse backgrounds who will have different perspectives. And the whole purpose of this is to have, you talk about diversity. I mean, diversity of thought, And that's the most important thing here. And you need different people different eyes to look at it and different perceptions to be able to distill a viable, valuable output. Not
I don't think you heard Martha.
Interrupt
you, but I don't think you heard Martha. This is not the plan. This is an inventory of existing conditions. So basically, it's a documentation of what exists. There is no.
Not the plan. Yeah.
It's not a plan and no recommendations.
Well, then we all need to be able to read them if we choose to. That's why we're here. I don't need Phil to tell me that I can't sit and look at land use and zoning, for example.
First of all, again, just be very clear. Everybody can read everything. There's no, it's just, this is a way to make it more workable.
Well, in your eyes, I don't see it that way. I think it ruins a lot of the value of the resources and people you have here. And why not? I mean, if nobody wants to be additionally on a committee, what's the harm? But if 6 people instead of 4 want to be on a committee, why not allow them to be?
I think it's more that there's 2 team captains for each topic, and we're all on the team. There's 2 captains per topic, and anyone on the team can give feedback on that topic to the team captains. It's just that we each have ownership about helping to distill this information. No one is left out of any one topic.
Well, I'm going to be commenting on all 10.
Ownership is not a good term to use in this. There's nobody that should be owning the ideas.
We're taking ownership over our role on the committee.
Well, yeah, you're structuring it that way. You're being very consolidative, and you're really shutting out, different views by narrowing it for no purpose.
It's not the plan right now.
That's not the right. That's not the right.
Wait, one at a time.
John, I apologize for my assumption that you understood earlier, but I think that this is really just somebody that's going to be taking the feedback and quarterbacking that feedback to the consultants, right? Where it's not 2 people that are structuring it. They just don't want responses from 14 different people on one topic. So I'm planning on reading all of the documents, and if I have feedback, I'm going to give it to you, and you're going to have to give it to them, right? That's how I see it. No one's silencing anybody.
That's right.
The other part of this is that it makes sure that the people who really read things, because let's face it, we're going to get a lot of things very quickly, and people may not get to read everything or not read everything so carefully. So it also, we're looking for people who really are in that either area of expertise or have passion about it, been doing a lot of things, and already, we're looking for those people to be the ones to take some of the leadership in these areas, so that they're more connected, and we'll be able to make more judgments. But everybody can read everything. Everybody can send any input anywhere. This is really just looking at what the current state is, right? This is and again, looking through the plan. This is their findings back to us.
Well, they're not independent. If you have more people, it's more of a collaborative process than if you have one person editing and deciding and consolidating the information. And
John, let me clarify.
It's not the way Walpole was run in the past.
Some time ago, we would just say to the committee, okay, everybody, read all of the chapters and everybody give us your comments. So what would we get? We would get for housing, all these comments from 20 people on the committee, and then economic development, only one person read it. And this whole other area here, nobody had time to read.
Right.
And so this is a way of addressing that. Everyone is going to read as much as they want, and all the comments will still come to us. It will just be a way of ensuring that all the chapters are read, and that we don't get 22 different emails. We get one where all the comments are collected. So it's not that your comments are going to come to us. They're going to come
collected and structured by one person. Yeah.
They're not going to change what you say. They're going to take what you say and give it.
It's a process, and it's
we're going around in circles. So I want to make a motion. I want to make a motion that we vote on this just to get the will of the committee as a whole.
Yeah.
So I make a motion that.
Let me ask you a question first, Phil. How many people on the committee? 15 or 14? How many people?
13.
13.
13.
So if each of them are each one are 3 committees, that would be, you would have less than 4 people on every committee. And that's too much?
It's a lot to ask people to do that, to be on 3 committees. It's a lot.
Two comment resolution matrices per section. However, the committee, the subcommittee, the working group, call yourselves working groups. We trust you. Apparently, I guess we trust you anyway to feed us what you hear. And we will take those comments and we will certainly consider them. Yes.
And I think if somebody had a major problem, we would bring it to the committee as a whole.
Yeah.
Somebody, this is not going to happen in the dark.
Screening.
So, no, but we will give room at our committee meetings to make sure that we hear any major issues or questions that need to be resolved as a committee as a whole.
And
everyone can see the MRCs, is it, Judy?
CRMs, comment resolution.
Can we all see that too?
Yeah, so here's what we do with it. You haven't seen one of these before. There's most of the columns in this matrix are filled out by the commenters. You tell us what page the thing is on, what's missing. If you think we're missing a piece of information, give us a correct source. Because what we're not going to do is spend a whole lot of time trying to chase stuff. But if you tell us what the source is, we'll go verify it. The last column in this sheet is the comment back from the consultant. What we often find when we review comments on documents is that people are making comments as they're reading along. And so they might think something's missing because they didn't see it here, but it's actually over here. And they didn't know that, right? So the CRM is beautiful because we're able to give you back this document that says, we addressed your comment over here. Not where you pointed out, but it's over here. It's a way for us to help people know that their comments were addressed in some way, or if the comments were rejected, we can say why. Either it wasn't relevant, we couldn't find facts to support the statement, or whatever. Just making this up. But I mean, you'll get a feedback, you'll get a comment back from us on every single comment we get. But this is why we cannot take 13 times 9. We cannot do it, and we won't. So
I would like to make a motion to that
13 times 3.
I make a motion that this committee adopt a motto of breaking our group up into subcommittees or work groups that would be 2 or 3 people each, who would then be the ones to take the lead responsibility on reviewing each of the different elements. And we would assign those committees based on people's interests and the committee you would like to be on, the element you would like to work on. Would someone like to second that?
I second that.
I'm not sure who did, but
I think Donnell's trying to
If I may
talk.
do a comment, I'm fine with that motion as long as you put in that they submit all additional comments.
What, Donald?
As long as you put into that the commenters submit all additional comments. In other words, they don't have the right, the commenters, to say that this is irrelevant. Maybe the planners do, and the planners will reply back that it's irrelevant. But
So all comments will be forwarded to Judy's team.
Yeah, you didn't have that phrased in your motion.
I will add it to my motion that all comments will be forwarded to the BR planning group.
Seconded.
Second by Brett. So all in favor, and I need to do a roll call vote for meeting guidelines. So I'll just your names, and there's my list here.
Sorry, before you do that, I believe that you must call them a working group and not a subcommittee for the open meeting law.
Yes, Judy and I have been having a long discussion about that, and it's interesting. Westboro called them. By the way, a lot of other towns have done this. They call it subcommittees, but let's call a working group to be safe. So it's a working group.
you still should check with town council and make sure there's not a problem.
Yeah, and I actually called the open meeting hotline today as well. I didn't get a response back yet. So,
The thing is, Bill, if there's a complaint, it's your town council that's going to have to deal with it.
So we should go to them.
I definitely would say go to
Yeah,
town.
so I have a call into Jim Johnson as well, but everybody's out this week. So that's, so I will follow up on that to make sure that we are in, following the appropriate open meeting laws. So roll call vote, Dean,
Aye.
Ashley,
Aye.
Carrie,
Aye.
and Andrew's not present. Janet,
Aye.
John,
I think he's frozen again.
yeah,
Come back to him.
we'll come back to it. John,
Yeah.
your vote,
Collegially, no.
okay. Jennifer,
Aye.
Margaret,
Aye.
Glenn,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
Donald,
Aye.
and Katie.
Aye.
And myself, aye. So I think the vote is 11-1-0, I think, if I have that right. So the vote passed. So please send to myself and to Patrick the 2 or 3 elements that you particularly would like to work on. And we will, and do them in the order of your preference. And we will look to make sure that everybody gets what they're looking to do. Try to divvy things out. Patrick?
Just to confirm, obviously it's Judy as well. So this element is in February, correct?
The documents are going to come out from us. The drafts will come out second or third week in February.
All right. So, I mean, the sooner everyone can get it to me, the better, just to get off the table. So I can confirm with town council as well and just run that by, just to make sure we're doing everything correctly in terms of a working group. So, thank you.
And just so everybody know the schedule. So February 22nd is when we will be meeting, and that will be our chance to, when we begin looking through the different elements, I believe is what you said, Judy, we would get them. And then March 16th is the community forum, where we will be, and that's the 16th, 17th, where we will be presenting those findings to the community at large. So by March 16th, we need to get back to Judy's team with any input we have so they can update the findings.
Phil, can I ask you a question?
1 second. Sorry, Mike. I think, and I don't think it needs to be addressed now, maybe Pat could send out a question to everyone, but that is, the February date is school vacation week. And I myself will be stuck here in Walpole, but I know there's a lot of people who go away, whether they have children or not, during that week. So I think you should survey the group and make sure we're going to have good attendance before we definitely go forward with that date.
And that, you're talking about March 16th?
No, February 22nd.
Oh, February 22nd. Okay, good point. Yeah, so we can do that. We'll come back to that in a minute. Michael?
So my question for you was just in picking the groups or picking the topics that we want to work on. I just should our first choice be the topic that relates to the group that we're here kind of representing? For example, I was nominated by the recreation committee, so should I be looking at recreation as my top?
I think that's your call. I think that's your decision. I mean, it makes sense that you would do that.
I mean, and I don't know if that's true for everybody else here, because they all have a certain expertise in the groups that they're representing. So I don't know if that makes it easier or harder, but sure. I'll make that my top and just add a couple of others.
Probably.
Mike, are you on the recreation committee or were you nominated by? Okay, so
I am, yeah.
So I would say that if there's one particular one that really interests you, you should go for that, but then definitely read the recreation as well.
Yeah.
If you can fit that into your schedule.
Yeah, I kind of like Judy's example of John and Ashley on the climate change and resiliency lead. Like there's a they balance each other out potentially. So I mean, maybe when it comes to housing, you get somebody who's really passionate about affordable housing and somebody who thinks we're moving too fast in that area. Maybe you get those two different perspectives.
Well, just remember though, too, in this what we're doing for February, it's really a lot of data collection and data analysis. And so we're not looking to speculate or to draw so much opinion. It's really trying to document the facts. And so
if there's information that you think we should have had that we didn't, then that's an opportunity to tell us. You know,
Well, data analysis is everything. I can tell any story you want with data analysis, just depends how I analyze the data. So it's everything. It's not nothing.
And like if I end up on the open space one, I might reach out to Glenn and just follow up with some questions because I know he has a lot of experience with that. Or whatever respective person on the committee just knows those things. So
no, that's a good point. And you can reach out to people who are not on the committee to ask them something.
that's true. I guess we could do that.
So and we might all each be on two committees. Again, we can see how that works out. But again, the goal is to if you have a lot of mixed feelings about where you want to be, we can make sure that we work that out. Maybe that one of the two, if you're on two committees, that one of them is the one you really want to be on. I mean,
rank them. I would say when you write to Phil or Patrick, if list like your top three in the order of priority. So they'll know what your number one really is.
Yeah.
They'll know what's acceptable to you as a number two, and they'll know what's acceptable to you as a number three, because there may be a whole bunch of people who want to do a particular element and there's only going to be 2 seats. So, think about making your choices or your wishes clear, I guess.
So do it in order of your preference, the three.
Right.
So go back to Katie's question, since you raised it, Katie. Are people going to be around for that February 22nd meeting, which is school vacation week?
I am.
I see that on the.
So I see Jen's.
I believe it says it's remote.
It will be that meeting will be remote.
So I might be able to make it if it's remote, but I won't be in town.
Judy, I don't know if there's any option even moving it because of your schedule and.
Well, I think the most important thing I need to say is that we're watching carefully what's happening with COVID. And so, right now we're not doing any in-person meetings.
Right, yeah, so that one is also down.
Yeah. So, I mean, sometimes remote helps people participate, but if you're off with your kids somewhere, you may not want to be sitting down in a hotel room or something at 7:00 at night to join the Walpole Master Plan Committee meeting. So, I mean, there's certainly time right now. Katie, I'm kind of glad you brought it up. I used to be so attuned to these things when I had kids in school, but now I don't. So I don't always think about it, but I would say if it's a problem for the committee, we could certainly just move that meeting, by a week.
So why don't people do this? Why don't you email Patrick and myself if you can't make it, just so we know who's.
Let's get a head count.
Yeah, so we get a head count, and don't feel that because it's a Zoom meeting, you could just call in even if you're on vacation. I mean, that's, if you're on vacation, you should be, you shouldn't depend on having to call in, because that can ruin a nice day.
Mr. Chair.
Family, yeah.
Mr. Chair, I believe, I don't think we finished the vote from previously.
I said, what, Patrick?
I don't think we finished the vote you were conducting earlier.
The vote for the motion or the vote?
Yeah, I don't think.
For the working groups?
Oh, did I miss somebody?
No, I thought the vote was 11-1 in favor.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that's right. 11-1.
I think you had your camera off there for a minute, Patrick.
That must have been it. Sorry.
That's all right. It was 11-1-0.
Could you read the motion again?
I think I'm going to have to go to the video, but the motion was, and I'm going to paraphrase here. Unfortunately, I didn't write it down. Be resolved that this committee form working groups for each of the 9 elements that are in the master plan, that will be comprised of 2 or 3 people from the committee, and that they will be the representatives of this committee in giving input to the Barrett planning group, and that all input that is given to those representatives from any other member of the committee will be forwarded to the Barrett group. So all changes, all input will be forwarded to them.
You should amend that to be 10 because you have 10 topics, not 9.
True.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, just 10 topics. Pardon me on that. That's because they split one up in half. Yes, you're right about that, John. So change that to 10.
Illegal vote.
It's what, an illegal vote?
No.
You want me to go to
I'm joshing with you, Phil.
Okay. Is that good? Is everyone good with that as we understand what it was?
Yeah.
And just so you know, Kevin, who is an assistant to Patrick, will be, I think he's writing, he's now helping with the minutes.
Yeah, so that was in the minutes. Kevin Sanderson, he's a minutes clerk in the administrator's office. So I didn't have time to get it done. So I reached out to him and he took care of it.
So he'll be watching the video to put the minutes together.
Right.
Yep.
So,
Phil,
yes.
instead of having everybody, why don't you just do a show of hands who's going to be able to go to the meeting? Then there won't be any more emails coming to
Okay,
you.
that's a good suggestion. So, who's going to be able to make the meeting? Maybe better do the opposite. Who's not?
What's the date and time again? Which meeting is?
It's February 22nd. So let's just do this again. Who cannot make the meeting? So it's Mike and Jen. And we don't know about Andrew. So I don't know if we want to look to change it. It's always, you don't like to leave anybody out.
Okay by me, I can watch it after.
Yeah, even if you try to change it, somebody else won't be able to come.
Yeah. So and again, Jen, are you all right if we go with it, forward with it? And yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mike. So thank you all, and that was a good suggestion. Yeah. So thank you. So the next order on the business is the master plan schedule, and I think everybody has a schedule. Judy, do you want to just highlight anything, just to reiterate anything?
I just wanted to make sure. No, I mean, really, we're on schedule right now. I mean, I could.
And then the big topic we wanted to discuss was we were looking to schedule an additional meeting on January 4th.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to see whether people would be available for that date. And the reason for having the meeting is to have more of an opportunity for us as a committee to meet together and discuss some of the issues. We might spend a little time maybe going around the committee and just seeing what people think about the master plan, what's important to you, or so it's an opportunity to get to maybe know what each of us are thinking, and also to kind of talk about some of the other issues that may be on your mind. So Katie?
So I can't make the 4th because I had previously made an appointment to do a kitchen table conversation, and the paperwork I had thought it was coming out earlier. So we rescheduled it to the 4th. So I can't make the 4th, but that's just me. So.
Should we do a show of hands? Who, and I'll do the negative, then who, because it's easier to see hands. Who could not make the 4th? Who would that? Again, I apologize for the short notice on this, but who could not make the 4th? So Carrie and Katie.
Katie, could you make it if we made it earlier? Since it's on Zoom, I don't know if people can get to a meeting earlier, like 6 or 5:30.
So it's going to be an evening meeting, but we didn't set the exact time because we're trying to figure out the location.
Yeah.
So there are 7 people already booked for the night. I'm assuming we'll do like a 6 or 7, but I don't have that. So don't center it around me. I just want you to know I won't be there unless the meeting time is later and I can squeak in and squeak out. So.
So it sounds like we have a quorum, a majority who could attend. So are we good going ahead with that? And again, I apologize to Carrie. I apologize.
Oh, that's fine. I have a family obligation. There's a possibility I could join later in the evening, but I wouldn't want to promise it, but I'm absolutely fine with going ahead.
No, and certainly, as I said, we did this very short notice, so fully understandable. We're just trying to fit more things in before we get this year.
Carrie or Katie, when you say later, maybe later in the evening might work, I'm just curious, what do you mean by later? You mean like 8 or do you mean later?
I think for me earlier would work. So that's because I'm assuming these people they said evening. So I'm assuming it'll be like I'm thinking 7, but we haven't confirmed it. So.
Okay.
Can we send like one of those links, the We Join In links, and people could put their availability and pick from there?
You mean like a doodle poll?
Yeah, thank you. A doodle poll.
We can do a doodle poll. Do you want to do that, Phil? We could just do a doodle poll and find out, is there sort of some time slot here that would work for everybody? If not, perhaps on that Tuesday night.
As long as that works with you, Judy, because I know you have a lot of meetings often scheduled at night.
That's the story of my life.
So I think we should start with your schedule then.
Well, why don't we send out, I think that Ashley makes a good point. Why don't we do a doodle poll?
Okay, we could do that.
And since it's on Zoom, maybe if it works for people, like a 5 or 6 to see if folks are available.
Yeah, we'll ask that question too. I mean, because I don't know what your schedules are. So we can ask that question as well.
Patrick, do you want to do that?
It's up to you. I can easily put it together.
Or I can do it too, either one.
Right.
You're doing everything, so.
I do have one question. Glenn, is select board meeting that night?
The 4th.
Oh.
Not to put him on the spot.
Oh, sorry. All right.
It's not
I'll look it up.
calendar, but that doesn't mean anything.
That's a year from now.
Yeah. I can look it up too. I wasn't sure.
So Judy, do you want me to send you, do you want to send me your schedule? So we start off with dates?
I figured we could just send the doodle poll. We could just.
Okay, right. I figured we should put down dates that you're already good with.
Yeah,
She
I'm just gonna
will.
set up a doodle poll and then send the link to Pat and he can send it out to all of you guys.
Okay.
And then as people respond, we'll know right away what people are saying. So I think that's the easiest way to do it.
Okay. But are you good most nights or not? I mean,
To me,
yeah.
it varies tremendously. It's like,
I was only suggesting putting only in the doodle poll the nights that you're free.
no, of course, that's what I would do.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you let us know what okay. I just want to make sure we're in sync on that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do that. And is there any other new business anyone wants to bring up?
I have a request, and it's a respectful request that before the next survey go out, we have more time so that as a committee, we can fully vet it. So that there aren't any surprises and we know it's coming. That's all.
You mean the survey questions, Katie?
I mean, the next public survey don't we have a community forum?
Yes.
Scheduled? Yeah, before that goes out, just so last time, because of the time constraints, it was, it just didn't go smooth. So I just want to see it go smoother. And I'd like to make sure we all have, as a group, have time to know what's coming and vet it and, give our input. That's all.
Okay. Yeah, we're
Fine with us.
yeah. So with unless someone else says something else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
I
moved.
think Mike said so moved.
I said so moved very,
So moved.
very
So
Second.
quietly.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think I can just do that as a,
Yeah.
so again, thank you all for attending tonight. I want to thank again Judy and her team for joining us, and we're very, very pleased to have you work all the work you're doing. And thanks to Patrick too for all he's doing. And again, thank you all. I want to wish you all a Happy New Year. So
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Good night, everyone.
Take care.
Good night.
Good night.
Aye.
Good night.